Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Dragons Lair podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Dragons Lair podcast. I'm Jamie and join me as always is Gavin Thomas. How are we, Gav? All well, I hope?
I'm very well, Jamie. We seem to be doing this a lot considering we weren't going to do any over the summer.
I know, they're coming thick and fast now. And we got another special guest. Honestly, we are setting the standard with special guests on this podcast. Just a reminder that you can find us at all the usual places, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and don't forget to follow us on our social media channels, Facebook and X. Okay, so as I said, we got another special guest for you this week. A former Dragons and Wales hooker who sadly had to announce his retirement recently at the age of 28 due to a serious back injury. He moved to the Dragons from Ulster back in 2022 and he made 27 appearances for the club and won 5 caps for Wales, making his debut against the country of his birth, South Africa, back in 2021. It was, in his own words, a short but very sweet career, and we are delighted to welcome him to the pod. Please welcome Bradley Roberts. How are we doing, Bradley? We all good, I hope?
Oh, I'm all good, thank you. Thank you for getting my age right, for one thing. Everyone's calling me 29, but I'm actually 28, so that's great.
I did check the Dragons website just to be 100% sure, but yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah. Good stuff.
Thank you for having me on.
No problem. We really do appreciate you coming on the pod.
Yeah.
So we always start at the beginning with our guests, those who have played pro rugby, and we ask them about their rugby journey. So you were born and raised in Durban, South Africa. Could you just tell us about your rugby journey and how you ended up playing for Wales? Because your journey into rugby, Bradley, was slightly unconventional, wasn't it? So do you like to tell us about it?
Some would say very unconventional. Yeah, so basically I grew up in Durban, played all my rugby at through the schools. The club rugby scene in South Africa is not as big as the school rugby, so you always play for your school. And so played through the age grade at school. Went to played Sharks under 18, which is in the Craven Week, which is quite a big thing in South Africa. And yeah, didn't get anything after that, so ended up at RGC for a little 6-month stint, and then came back on a holiday after the season in the British summer, South African winter. And the Sharks under 19 season was just starting up, and got asked to come and train down there, and ended up training really well, and which I must say was probably due to my time at RGC. Like I really grew up there and was obviously training against men, and it really toughened me up a little bit, and which is what I kind of needed, I think. And I ended up playing a lot for the Sharks at 19, and then again no contract at the end of it, so gave up rugby for a year and a bit, and went to uni. Realized it wasn't for me. Playing a bit of rugby at uni, but nothing too serious. And then got an opportunity to go and just play club rugby in Ireland. Thought, why not? And went over with an ancestral visa and played like 3 and a bit years there, like 2 years, then COVID hit, then came back for a short stint and then got picked up by Ulster. And yeah, I really enjoyed that kind of environment. That's the life I always wanted to live, and it was finally happening. And yeah, I got a chance and kind of took it. And within a year, I was playing for Wales. So yeah, through my grandparents, which is the reason why I had the ancestral visa to start with. So yeah, and a bit of a roller coaster, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, isn't it? So growing up in Durban, then who were your favourite players then, Bradley? Were there any rugby idols that you looked up to?
Yeah, like guys like Bismarck, Duplessis, like you always, John Smiths, you always grew up like wanting to aspire to be like them. And like when I was at under 19 of the Sharks, we had a few sessions of throwing with Bismarck, and probably one of the scariest guys I've ever met. But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, if you mess up, then he would punish you. No, not punish you, but like you're just scared to make a mistake just in case he did like shout at you or something because he's scary. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, like those were the main guys, and I consider myself quite in a like my main game was in the loose always, like even at high school, and that was my game. Like I always knew my scrums and my lineouts were solid. Um,
Yeah.
but I really thought my X factor or my edge was with the ball in hand on defense and that kind of thing. So being on the smaller end of things, it was always tough, especially in South Africa. So I always knew that, like, as I grew up and put on a bit of weight and kind of like just developed as a man, uh, if I was put in front of the right people, then kind of things would start to happen for me, and I backed myself, and it kind of did. So yeah,
Did you always play as hooker, Bradley? Because you commented on the size, and you're clearly in South Africa. Front rowers tend to be large, for want of a better phrase. So,
yeah,
did you always
yeah.
play at hooker, or did you play elsewhere?
Um, I mean, besides when I was like under 11, my primary school, like I wasn't tiny the whole way going through. Like when I was under 11, I was quite average sized, and then I played flank and eighth man.
Mm.
But then Sean Everett, who now coaches Edinburgh, was actually director of rugby at my primary school. So it just
Oh,
shows you the
right.
caliber of
Yeah.
the primary school. So like he basically told me, listen, take this ball, go start throwing at the wall. I want you to throw 200 times a day, and you're going to move to hooker next year. And so that's what I went and did. And then I didn't look back, played hooker for the rest of my career, basically.
Because I thought in the loose you always played like a seven, a European
Yeah.
seven, as opposed to a South African seven. But I thought you were always at that age, and you were always looking to get in the breakdowns and always looking for the
Yeah.
ball. So I was wondering if it started out in the back row, but clearly not.
Yeah, but that was my game. Like I had always had high involvements in games, like whichever game it was. Like I always like I looked for work, and that's what I enjoyed doing. That's all I knew basically. So always that's kind of comes down to trying to prove a point. Always like trying to make things happen, and like so that yeah, I wouldn't say it was due to my under 11 career as a flank weight man. I think I think it's more due to just my character as a player. Like I've always had a points group, so I always worked. I should have probably had to.
Mm. Okay. You mentioned earlier playing for RGC and Colwyn Bay. Was that an experience you enjoyed playing and living in North Wales?
I mean, it was a big difference. It was a big change for me. Like all my mates from school were all going to university, and like I wanted to pursue rugby as a potential like career. So
Yeah.
at first, it was very challenging. Like I could see on social media and all that, like all my friends just enjoying themselves, and I was going to Colwyn Bay, a place that I've obviously. This is
Yeah.
also my first time. This was my first time being overseas, and I was by myself. And
Mm.
obviously, they were halfway through their season, so it was like quite challenging in that perspective. But the longer it went on, the more I kind of bought into it, and the better friends I made, and like by the time I left, I couldn't wait to get back, and that was kind of the plan. But the opportunity to play for Sharks in the 19 was something that I, coming out of school, would have like bitten my left hand off for. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
that like was something that I'd been striving for, but it never happened in the conventional route. Um, so yeah, I couldn't really turn it down because it was a potential way in to like the Sharks and team that I'd grown up watching my whole life. And yeah, when that never happened, I thought maybe rugby isn't for me. So yeah, went and tried out the university thing and realized that also wasn't for me. So I realized that maybe like I need to give rugby another crack. I knew I was good at rugby, and I knew I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would just wanted to see where things would go.
Mm. And it was Ulster, wasn't it, that gave you your big break, if you like, when they picked you
Yeah.
up from rainy old boys. They needed injury cover while Rob Herring was away on Ireland. You enjoyed your time in Belfast, didn't you, Brad? And you quickly became a fan favourite down at the Kingspan Stadium. So is that a period in the career that you look back on fondly?
Yeah, 100%. To be honest, the plan was actually to go to RGC during that period. I was supposed to, during the COVID times, I was actually in talks with RGC, and basically they didn't know their budget and that kind of thing, so they couldn't give me anything solid. Um, and I'd committed to them basically. I said, "Listen, I will come. Like that's a good opportunity
Yeah.
for me. I'm interested in. That's definitely something that I'm keen for." And that was the whole plan. After that was to get over and play for RGC, and then because of their like lack of like what's actually going to happen here, Ireland was kind of starting up their club rugby as well,
Mm.
and the club Rainy Old Boys basically just I'd actually told them that I was leaving. I was going to go play in the Welsh Prem for RGC, and they were happy with that. And eventually, they said, "Well, listen, why don't you come back and play a few games for us and just get match fit, and so that when you do go to Wales, um,
Yeah.
that you'll be ready to go." And then kind of I went over, played like 3 or 4 games, and then got told that basically Ulster were looking at me as potential injury cover if anyone else gets injured, because they had three hookers, which 3 hookers and Rob Herring, who was away. So they had
Yeah.
3 available hookers. And then Tom Stewart ended up getting injured. So they needed someone as soon as possible. Um, so it was very quick how everything moved. And next thing I knew, I was like driving up from Macrofeld, which is Rainy Old Boys, like where they're based,
Yeah.
driving up to Belfast every morning and training with Ulster, like just going in with an open mind, really, not really kind of thinking. I knew it was a good opportunity, obviously, because it was like a proper, like world class professional team,
Yeah.
but not really knowing like what the kind of path was going forward. Just going there and just gonna do what I normally do, train hard. If I get a chance to play, I'll play hard, and hopefully the rest sorts itself out. So yeah, that was kind of, yeah, and it was like I couldn't have like I couldn't have even imagined it the way it ended up playing out. Like just things started falling into place, and next thing I knew, I signed a contract with them. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And it was your performances for Ulster that led you getting a call up by Wales for the Autumn Nation Series in 2021. How exactly did that opportunity come about then, Bradley? Did you receive a phone call from Wayne Pivac, or was it another member of
Yeah,
the
so
Welsh management?
so basically, I was obviously my agent, or my past agent now is Reese Parsons, and he obviously was based in Wales, and
Mm.
he was great to me, to be honest. I can't say enough good words about him. So he sent me a message saying, "Listen, Brad, Wayne Pivac's going to call you regarding the Autumn Nations this year." Um, so I was in the gym at Ulster, like training with my usual training partners, and uh, I left my phone in a place where I could see it, and
Yeah.
like 10 minutes later, I got a call from Winter back. So I just ran out the gym, ran to my car. Yeah, and he basically just said, "Listen, we're about to pick the autumn nation squad, and um, we just want to hear what your thoughts are, and like if we were to consider you to be selected." And at the time, it was a very tough decision because like I'd just been breaking through into Ulster. Like
Yeah.
I'd just been signed, and then I was getting good game time with Ulster, and like I didn't really know where my Irish qualification status was at, and I'd been obviously living in Ireland for like 4 years at the time, so I thought I
Mm.
might have been close there and thereabouts for Irish qualification, and obviously I also had my Welsh ancestry that like obviously I knew from my grandparents growing up, my dad, my surname's Roberts, obviously. So I knew I had
Mhm.
strong ties to Wales, but at
Yeah.
the time, it just didn't seem like the right. I kind of want to give the Ireland thing a full crack because I knew how good Ulster were in the great scheme of the Pro 14 at the time, and I knew that this was an opportunity that I feel like I need to repay them, like
Yeah.
with some sort of commitment. So I said to Wayne at the time, I said, listen, I would love to take this opportunity. I need to see where my Irish qualification status is at because I really feel like I could make a name for myself here, and I know what going to play for Wales means for my career here at Ulster. I knew that obviously with the 50 cap at the time, that would mean having to leave Ireland and go to Wales,
Yeah.
which I wasn't against, but I just wanted to get the whole picture and
Yeah.
figure out where I was at from that kind of a perspective. And then as soon as I got off that call, he said, no, he fully understands that. And like he was like, we would have considered you for selection, but like obviously with what you're saying, like we, we'll not take your name out the hat, but we'll consider other guys as well. And I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's a no for now. It's not a no forever.
Mm.
And then basically I went back to my agent, said, we need to find this out now. We need to find out if I'm in line to be Irish qualified within the coming years, or if I am Irish qualified now, because I went home for COVID and the ruling was you had to like basically what it came down to was the fact that I had to start my Irish qualification all over again, and it just made no sense for me to like not go and take this opportunity when the call came again. To go and play international rugby, which is something that I could not even have imagined for myself. And I thought I'd be stupid not to take it. So when like Ken's back wasn't right and Elliot had laryngitis, they needed a hooker. And then I thought, well, listen, this is going to be a once in a lifetime. Yeah, I'm going to go to Wales, and there's a good chance that I'll play and go and prove myself again. So when that call came along, I basically made the decision that like, listen, I've got strong ties to Wales. Like my dad was a big factor, and obviously he passed away. But I just thought, how proud would he be of me going and playing for the land of like our forefathers, basically. So
Yeah.
it was a no-brainer, and like once I was there, I was fully committed, and like obviously I was very scared and nervous because this was like, okay, I'd only played 10 times for Ulster. Now I'm gonna go and potentially play against New Zealand and
Yeah.
the Springboks. Like a lot of self-doubt. Am I ready for this? Like, and then yeah, it was just a dream come true. Like being named in the squad to play against the Springboks, which is this team obviously I grew up like admiring, and like they were like gods in South Africa. So being able to like try and prove myself against them was incredible. Like something that I'll always look back with fond memories.
So when
Yeah.
they play the national anthems, clearly, like you'll be there for mine
Yeah.
head rather than harder. But when they play the Ukulele Africa, what were you feeling then? that must be
Oh
quite difficult
no.
not to sing.
Yeah, well, the issue was I had all my friends and my mom sitting in the bottom tier of the principality right in front of me. And yeah, I couldn't actually look at them because I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. Obviously, I was really proud to play for Wales, and like I'd like learned the anthem, and I just like fully committed. But there was obviously a big part of me that was like I don't know, that I had like a knot in my stomach,
I
like
bet.
because I'd always grown up, even when I was living in Ireland, all that time, I'd always, every time the Springboks played, that I was singing Kosisika Leli Africa. Like that was just, that's
Of
just
course.
me.
Yeah.
That's how I grew up, So
Yeah.
it was weird, but it was also quite exciting, like shit, I'm gonna play against these guys who I've grown up like idolizing, and I'm gonna go toe to toe with them and give it horns. So it was quite an emotional day, but it was like I couldn't have scripted it. You know what I mean? Like it was incredible.
No.
I've always wondered that, and it tends to be South Africans who play for other countries across the world. Now, I always think you guys like you or Duran van der Merwe or whoever, clearly they're proud to represent Wales or Scotland, whoever, but ultimately you're South Africans, aren't you? And there must still be that pang when you hear your national anthem.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't help it, like,
No, no.
Your heritage is South African. Like, you grew up, was born as South African, and I still am South African to a large extent, but there's a big part of me now that's also Welsh. I'm living in Wales, playing for Wales, and that will forever be the same, And like, yeah, I just you can't help it, but feel not disappointment, not sadness, but just like a weird sensation that like bloody hell, like this is really happening. Like I've been grew up dreaming of playing for the Springboks, and now I get the chance to play against them. Like it's a weird feeling, but like once you're out there and once you're getting stuck in, you actually like you're watching throwing the ball in the line out, and you see Etzebeth and Siya Kolisi and all the big names that you've like watched win World Cups, and like and supported during those World Cups. So it's like, yeah, it's something I'll never forget and something I'll be proud of. Like playing for Wales is a huge honor of mine, and like something that will never leave me as well. I'll always be a Welsh international, and I'm very proud of myself for that for lots of different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had a good game as well. I can remember that game. You came off the bench, your arrows were good, you disrupted them all. You had a very good debut. Was you feeling happy with yourself after that?
No, I was very happy, but then like it's also very stressful playing for Wales. Like obviously international rugby is high stress environment, high pressure, and I thought I managed it well. And then like you think of that game, and then you think of the week after where I was on the bench against Fiji. I got brought on when we were beating the Springboks, and then never got put on against Fiji when we were winning, and they had a red card. So like you kind of always look at it from that perspective, like shit, like how. Excuse my language, sorry.
No,
like,
it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Don't worry.
Swear away.
Like how is that kind of happening, and then like I'm not getting put on against Fiji to get another opportunity, and then I didn't get an opportunity the weekend after that because Elliot came back from injury. So, yeah, it's like I don't know if I was ever fully given a proper crack, and when I was given a full crack, like against England and France, I did really well as well. So
you
I
did,
just look back and think like like there's a lot of like kind of what could I have done more when I really didn't get given the opportunity that I feel like I was due. So it's always tough. Like you look back at the games you kind of missed out on and why, instead of like looking back at every individual performance and saying, okay, well, I did good then. Obviously there was 2 games against Italy and France, which were like, yeah, it was just huge momentum swings as soon as you get on the field, which doesn't help. And then when you do get opportunity, then that doesn't get rewarded after that. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but it is what it is. Like this, me now, I'm retired. There's nothing I can do about that now. All I can do is be proud of myself for what I did do and just carry on.
Exactly. I know everyone can say that they're Welsh international, and that can't be taken away from you either.
And I don't think those selections were necessarily down to you either, Brad. I think there wasn't a great deal of coherence in the selection around that period.
Yeah. No, exactly. It feels like, yeah. For those games in particular, the Italy and the Georgia games, like it just feels like we were thrown into the deep end. Like So what can me as a hooker like do to change the game? Not much. Like it's stuff's happening. Like the momentum's a huge thing in rugby, and if the momentum's fully against you, like how can you change it? And it's more of a team thing of like how the team changes it than individuals. But unfortunately, you get judged on individual performances at the end of the day, and team performances. And if you're on the pitch and you're losing, then that's kind of how that's the paintbrush you get painted with. You know what I mean?
So I'm going to ask you a question, Brad, if that's all right, about hooking and about lineouts particularly. Now, fans will often say, if a lineout's not working, it's down to the hooker. Now, I play hooker as well, so I'm kind of you're going to spare my blushes here. It's not it's not solely down to the hooker, is it? Like the line out is an assembly line, and all the parts
Yeah.
have to be working for the line out to work. It's not purely down to whether or not you can throw her in straight, is it?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'd love to say it's never the hooker's fault, I think there obviously is times when you have thrown badly. And
Oh
like
yeah.
obviously sometimes if it's like a really good defensive line out, the days can get tough, and it's obviously a whole system kind of thing. But I would agree with you in the fact that it's not always the fault, but sometimes the hookers have bad days as well. Everyone has bad
Yeah.
days. Sometimes
Yeah.
goalkeepers have bad days. So like it's just that I feel like a hooker is a very underappreciated position because he's
Agree.
just as important as the goalkeeper. You have more individual roles compared to like how many times does a goal kicker goals 11 or 12 or 13 times a game, whereas a hooker probably has 11, 12, or 13 throws in a game
Hmm.
that they have to get spot on. And if they don't get a spot on, then you just give the ball to the other team. So um, I feel like it's not an art that people kind of understand and take for that value. Like it's quite an underappreciated position. You have a lot of weight on your shoulders and like yeah, and pressure and like I feel like hookers if they miss one or two lineouts, like would you look at them the same? Whereas their statistics would be better than a goal kicker who misses one or two kicks at goals,
Yeah.
So it's always like, oh, he had a shit game. Sorry, I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He had a
funny.
shit game
Please do.
if you missed two or three darts. But a goal kicker, if he gets two from the corner and misses one from the post, he had a good game. So
Yeah.
it's just like it's one of those things. Like obviously, it probably will never change. But as hookers, you'd like to get a bit more, kind of appreciation for having a good arrows.
It's
Yeah.
high pressure as well, isn't it? And I think people, particularly fans, don't always understand that. Yeah, you do have to be able to throw it in straight. You have to do that part, but then you're also relying on the timing of like three or four other guys as well. So
Oh,
it brings a
100%.
challenge.
And yeah, like obviously, us as hookers, we know when we've had a bad throw,
Yeah.
But there's also throws that you think is a good throw and then it goes over the top or it gets stolen. And like we as and the coaches and everyone else, they as a group, everyone knows when it's who's at fault and whether it's just good competing or that. But the general public, they don't see it like that. They see like, oh,
No.
you missed two lineouts or three lineouts, and like do a skew one or something like that. But like there is more to it, like sometimes it's just good competing, like
Mm.
you try and throw the ball down the middle. The team has your number and they get up in the right positions, or there's an underlift or there's a lot of components that make up a lineout and a lot that play an important role into whether your team gets the ball back. Good calling system, calling to the right areas. Yeah, so yeah, I feel like it is a very underappreciated art.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
did you benefit from the changes in the laws around defending rolling mauls? Because we've seen hookers becoming quite high scorers now, because yeah, it's harder to defend against a rolling maul. Did you benefit from that? It always struck me that you're that kind of player that would have loved those opportunities, get on the back of a rolling maul and those little darts over from a couple of yards, like the one you scored against. Was it
Yeah,
Ospreys last season? I think it was
yeah.
one
That
against Ospreys last year.
was it. I can't remember now. I scored so many tries, I just can't remember the names.
Humble brag there,
Um,
Bradley.
no, well, no one else is going to blow my trumpet, so I may as
No,
well do
Oh,
absolutely.
we do on this
no,
pod all the time. But go
no,
on, yeah,
I
continue.
know, no, I'm only joking. Yeah, it's yeah, it is one of those things. Obviously, like you look at a guy like Johnny Matthews, and he's scoring
Yeah.
his like hand over foot. He's scoring tries every week. But it all comes down to the work that the guys in front of you are doing. If you've got a
Yeah.
good, strong ball, being at the back of the ball is easy. Like my time at Ulster was known as one of the strongest malls, and
Mm.
the hookers like myself, Rob Herring, John Andrew, we used to score loads of tries off the back of mauls because of how strong the actual maul was. And like some teams are like, there's a lot of different ways that teams are trying to defend mauls now, which make it harder. And like Glasgow, as good as their attacking ball, their defensive mauls just as good. You know, they turn over a lot of ball, they disrupt a lot of ball. Not many teams score against them because of how strong their maul is. And you look at modern day rugby, the maul is a huge weapon. You know? It's a like penalties, kick to the corner. It's a great attacking opportunity, try scoring opportunity. So yeah, being at the back of the maul is, I mean, every hooker wants to be at the back, or every player would like to be at the back of the maul. Sometimes the guys in front of you don't give you the ball, and you shout at them for it. And if they score, then you're happy, but you're also like, oh, you could have given me that try. So yeah, it is nice being at the back, but you know, if your maul is doing well, you're happy. It doesn't matter if you're scoring or someone else is scoring. As long as your team is going forward, then I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No. Okay, let's talk about the Dragons then. So you signed for the Dragons back in 2022, and Dean Ryan was the director of rugby there at the time. I want to ask you, what was your relationship like with him? Because I've spoken to some people at the club off the record, and let's just say there were some mixed reactions to working with Dean. What was your relationship like with him, Bradley?
Yeah, it was. I mean, he liked me. Like it's no like secret. Like he gave me a good opportunity, and like I'll be completely transparent. He didn't like a guy like Elliot.
You heard that,
like, although I have a lot of respect for Elliot, and he's obviously proven Welsh international. You know, he was probably the best hooker at the World Cup. You know, realistically, performance wise, and like he had these opinions of players that obviously weren't always right, you know, but it also got under players' skin as well. Like it affected them personally, and then in turn it would affect their performances. So, like, look, he wasn't there for long while I was there, but I heard stories going in. Like, obviously, I don't want to badmouth Dean, but like, there's just I don't know. I don't know if he did it in the right way or he just rubbed players up the wrong way and like it made it personal. And whereas that should never be the case. It should all be performance based as a coach. You know, you should look at players from what they do on the pitch and not kind of how they are and what they say and that kind of thing. Like if you playing 80 minutes every week and you man of the match every week, doesn't matter what you say or do during the week. Like the coach, obviously within reason, the coach should pick you because you are a performing player, and that's what they need. They need players who are performing week in and week out. So, yeah, like he was good to me, but I can see why he didn't last long while I was there. If you know what I mean. So, it's. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to like, you know, it is what it is, and it's one of those things as a player. You know, you just got to deal with it and kind of move forward. If you let it get to you too much, then you'll be negatively impacted from it. So,
yeah. And you had a really good relationship with Dave Flanagan, though, didn't you? And he spoke very highly of you when you retired as well. Said you gave everything for the club.
Yeah, no, I respected that a lot. You know, like he's obviously he knows a bucket load about rugby. He loves rugby. He lives rugby. And I respected the fact that he understood that I knew the game quite well as well. So obviously, being a smaller guy, you always have to be that extra 10% to be at that level. So he understood that I understood the game, and like I respected him massively. And he's a great guy to have in the environment to be a head coach. You know, like just for his knowledge. You know, he's obviously got room to grow. And I think like a guy like Philo, then bringing him in, like from what I've seen in this preseason, Philo's been incredible. Like just bring the culture and the belief in the players and work ethic and standards. Like he's brought a huge different dimension that I think the group needed. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It is well documented that Dai is not the most outspoken and he's not the harshest, and he's not like. Whereas I think a guy like Philo, like for him to be in that environment, Dai will still have the ultimate say, but Philo will have a lot to do with the culture and how the players behave, and, just like the goals of the team, just to like how to get the most out of the players, and which I think is invaluable to a team like the Dragons. Like the Dragons we have really good players. It's just how do we
We do,
maximize
yeah.
their potential? How do we maximize their potential and get the most out of them? And I think a guy like Philo will really bring that out of players. Not in like just like flogging players, but like he'll do the work with you. You know what I mean? Like he'll be
Yeah.
the guy who's there by your side when you go into those dark places, and he'll want to be dark with you. So I think that's a huge addition to the Dragons, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the boys, because like I think that's the type of person they need in that environment. Positive, ready to work hard with you, and and won't be scared to call you out if you do make mistakes, and like setting standards that you can like if it does go south, you can look back and be like, well, this is what we said in the beginning of the year. Now, why aren't we achieving that? What is it going to take for us to get to where we need to be, kind of thing. So Andy's just an honest bloke as well, and like Philo, I got along with Philo really well, just because
Yeah.
I was obviously still in the Dragons till obviously when I retired, and
Yeah.
I just really like loved how hard the boys were working, and something that I hadn't seen since I'd been there. And like it's one of those things that you look back and flip, mate, what could have been different when I was playing? We had done this and we had done that, but it's good that it's happening now. Like it's a good time for
Yeah.
it to happen, and I think the group is really bought into everything that Di and Philo have come up with, and Matt obviously, and I think the squad is in a very good position going forward, and like I'm not going to say they're going to be winning competitions, but I definitely think they'll be way more successful than we have been in the previous 2 seasons while I've been there. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited to see what boundaries they can push, what teams they can push home and away. And like what results they can get, because I really do think they can get massive results at any given time, and it's just about consistency then, like being able to repeat those kind of performances week in and week out without fail. And yeah, it's just I think like I couldn't have brought in a better person for culture and for all that kind of stuff, like work ethic and standards, and like Philo is a great guy for that, and I think they've done a really good job there.
Yeah, it sounds like he's making a really big impact at the Dragons. And no disrespect to the other coaches previously, but I think we could have done with a coach like Philo a long time ago, because that's something that we've talked about, haven't we, Gav, on this pod about culture? We've talked about with Reece Plum, but pretty much every week. No, but I think that's what the Dragons needed.
Yeah.
I think we needed someone to come in and change the culture. So, yeah, sounds encouraging. Let's hope the boys do have better results.
It's all talk. Like there's no point in just talking about it. When you need to, the fans,
Absolutely.
you need to see the performances.
We do, yeah.
And I think
sorry, go on.
I think that's the big thing. Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that like I think with a guy like him in there, people will be held more to account. Not in the greater team environments. Like obviously throughout the years, doesn't matter who the coaches are. The players want to perform, but they need to be given the right environment and the right kind of whole picture to perform at their best, like to thrive.
Yeah.
And no, I wasn't saying that it wasn't a high performance environment, but it feels like now it pretty much is a high performance environment. And I think like a guy like Di, he's very well versed in rugby, but he's not lacking it. But he's just the leadership aspect of it is something that he's learning. Obviously coming from the Scarlets, not being in a position like that, and he's only been at the Dragons with full reins now for a season and a half. So having a guy like Philo, who's like very boisterous and makes his opinions known and brings in small little things that improve the culture of the team, I think now it feels like it's a high performance environment that wants to create a winning culture. Like that's just what
Yeah.
it seems like to me, which is great. Like that's what everyone, me as well as the fans, or me now as a fan as well, want to see from the Dragons is the boys performing, because the potential has always been there. Like
Yeah,
we,
that's it.
if you go back to results we've had against like Munster in my first season, we beat them, and they went on to win the whole thing, and we didn't just beat them, we dominated that game. Like that is the potential that the team has,
Yeah.
to put teams under high pressure and get results. And yeah, and I'm just excited to see what can happen, because it is, you know, it's exciting for me and it's exciting for the Dragons. I know the boys are also, as much as they're hurting day to day, they can also feel the kind of change in kind of something needs to change. Let's be honest,
Yes,
like, and the
absolutely.
change I feel is happening already. So
That's good.
I think they're going to be in a good spot.
Oh, that's good. That's really encouraging to hear that. So when you was at the Dragons, in your first year, you shared a flat in Newport with Rob Evans. That must have been an
Oh
experience,
no.
Bradley. Could you share any stories with us? You're bound to have some funny
Oh,
stories because he's a
oh
character,
no,
isn't he,
Rob
Rob
Evans.
Evans?
No, he's a hell of a character. Yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, it was a hell of an experience. But I really enjoyed my time with Rob. He was a great guy
Yeah,
to have around. He understood obviously a lot of. Obviously, he was going through a bit of a rough patch himself. Like not that saying that I was, but he was like kind of, got let go by the Scarlets and was trying to reinvent himself and find out you know, what how to get the most out of himself. And yeah, he was just a great bloke, and obviously great to pick his brain as well, because he had obviously been through all the highs with Wales and obviously
yeah.
some lows. But he's won the Pro 14, like won the Six Nations, won the Triple Crown. He's won it all, So he's a
Mm,
great guy to live with, and we had many good conversations. Not really about rugby, mainly just about life, and he's got lots of stories to tell. But I won't. Most of them I can't tell. So
they're
No, I can
X-rated, are they?
imagine.
X-rated stories.
yeah, you don't want to hear those ones. Yeah, but as I said, Robbo, he's a great guy. Like, he always keeps in touch and makes sure I'm okay. And I think he thoroughly enjoyed it. He's enjoying his time at in Miami, and yeah, so happy for him.
Ah, good stuff. Okay. Time for some listeners' questions. Thank you to those
Okay.
who sent in their questions. So Owen gets in touch and he says, firstly, absolutely gutted to you about your retirement. Yes, that's a sentiment we all share. And then he asks, as a hooker standing at 5'9", is that correct, Bradley? 5'9"?
Yeah, 5'9". Oh,
Okay. So as a
five
hooker
foot nine,
standing at
5'8".
yeah, as a hooker standing at 5'9", do you think it's unfair that your height gets referenced anytime you do well, or getting the punched above his weight comment? Good rugby is good rugby in my eyes, no matter what shape and size. Now, I'm going to be honest, on this pod, I have said several times you've punched above your weight, but I hope you take it as a
Yeah.
compliment, Bradley. I hope
No,
you're okay
well,
with that.
I mean, no offense, but it's just the stigma you get. You get painted with that brush, and like it's not your
Yeah,
fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just the way. It's the way that people see rugby players, and being shorter isn't isn't seen as an advantage. Whereas I would argue that in other aspects of the game, being shorter is actually an advantage. Like
yeah,
being shorter means, and not necessarily being lighter than most of the hookers, you're far harder to tackle. That's a fact. You have a lower
yeah,
center of gravity. You like that's one of the reasons why I was so successful at pick and goes, because I
mm,
knew what I was good at. I knew my superpowers, and I just did them well. And like I was just, it wasn't like it's something that I worked on, but I just knew I was good at them. So I just used to do that more. And like I scored a few pick and go tries in my first season, and like that's just because when it got to that scenario, I knew that I needed to get stuck into that, because that was something that was like something that I was really good at. And I do
yeah,
feel like it's a shame. Like obviously, there's a few things you can't change in your life. It's how tall you are. You can't make yourself taller. Make
no,
yourself bigger and stronger and faster. but you can't actually change your physiology, like how tall you are, and like it shouldn't be the case. That should really shouldn't, and um, it is a shame, but it's just an old-fashioned way of thinking about what rugby players should look like, you know. And
Yeah,
these guys like Cheslin Colby and Kurt Arnson, they've just proven everyone wrong, haven't they? So it's like coaches have started to change their like kind of their beliefs around if someone's a good rugby player, they're a good rugby player regardless of what they look like, how tall they are, how heavy they are, you know. And like
yeah,
Scott
absolutely.
Brits was another prime example. Like I think his playing weight was like 98 kilos, but he shot lights out for Saracens week in and week out, and then went and played for the Springboks in the World Cup. So like, um, it's it's not fair to say that that's like this is the mold and everyone should be like that.
Yeah,
But the coaches always want to go for the guys, especially in the front row, who are bigger, who have more weight, who are a bit taller. You know, like they're
yeah,
always looking for that. And like from my personal perspective, if I was 6'1", say, I would have got. I don't want to like blow my own trumpet, but I think I would have got far more caps. I would have probably been well looked after in South Africa as well. So it's just like growing up in South Africa, I saw the full brunt of that, you know, like
yeah,
always being told that like I'm too small and then outperforming the guys who were bigger than me and then still being told that, like this is like you're not gonna do well here. And
mm,
then eventually I knew that all it took was one coach to just be like, I don't care what he looks like. I don't care how short he is. I care about what he's doing and his stats and how many gain line meters he's making and how many tackle breaks he's getting and how many tackles he's making, what's his tackle success rates. And like from a stats perspective, I was always up. I was always like up there with the most carries,
yeah,
most gain line meters, you know, gain line percentage, all those stats. I was always up there. And if you go by those stats, and you don't like it, I don't want to like sound brazen here, but if like you took someone who was blind or couldn't see, and you read out the stats, and you asked them to pick a team, they would always pick the guy whose stats are be better performing than the other hookers. So like
yeah.
it's just a shame, really, like how you get painted in the eyes of the coach. As it's at the end of the day, there's only one man's opinion. They pick the team. So,
Mm.
you know, if they don't like you, then sorry for you. That's just the way it's gonna be. And like as much as you have to perform, like it doesn't matter how well you perform, sometimes it's not just not good enough, you know. So yeah, and I feel like that to a certain degree was my Wales career. Like it didn't matter what I did, um, and what other guys were doing as well, like how well or how badly they were performing. It really didn't matter. Like at the end of the day, they wanted this profile of player, and that was shown by their World Cup selections last year. Like they picked like Ken, Dowie, Elliot, and Elias.
Yeah,
Like if you look at them, they're all pretty similar in stature.
Hmm.
Elliot's probably lighter than most of them, but he had he's still taller and had proven himself. And like, whereas a guy like me only played 5 times on the smaller side, you know, like I had to play like 20% better than all of them just to get a look in. And
mm,
that was just the way it was. And like, I can only do so much as a player. I can only, you know, perform as well as I can when I get given an opportunity. And like I feel like my best game for Wales was my last game. Like, and that's just the way it is, you know. Like, there's not much I can do, and
No.
I'll always look back with that with pride because, you know, at the end of the day, it just proves my points right. You know, like it doesn't matter what I did, I would always have to do more than everyone else just to get a look in the same realm. You know what I mean?
yeah, you should be proud of your career, Bradley, and you've already proven a lot of people wrong with your rugby
Yeah,
career. You know, you represented Wales and
exactly.
you had a really good club career, so you should feel proud on what you achieved.
There's
No, I'm very proud.
hundreds of thousands of rugby players in the world, and very few of them get to a professional level, and even less of
Yeah,
them get to play international rugby.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah,
I think, your achievements speak for themselves, and anyone who thinks, oh,
yeah,
well, he hasn't done a lot is quite foolish, to be honest, because, you've done some remarkable things.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you very much, guys. Because, like, if I look back at like 4 years ago when I was still playing for any old boys, if I could have planned it out, my career, it wouldn't look anything like what it looked like
Yeah.
now. Like, it was hard and fast, and like it was sometimes at times hard to like kind of appreciate it because it was so quick. Like next thing I was playing for Wales. Well, first I was playing for Ulster, then I was playing for Wales, and then moved to the Dragons and played a bit for Wales. Then you look back now and you're like, look, I wish I could have just enjoyed it a bit more. But it's just such a high pressure and high stress environment. Hard to appreciate it at the time. You're just focusing on mainly just focusing on the things that could go wrong. To be honest with you, it's like hard to. You're so stressed about it that like you just think about, oh shit, what happens if I miss a line out? What happens if I do this? Or, when in reality, when you're on the pitch, that's the least of your worries. When you've got like Malvaka running at your channel, you're just thinking, am I going to smash this guy? Yeah, like that's the only thing you're worrying about. So, yeah. Thank you for saying that because that means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. I'm proud of myself. So
You should be.
You absolutely should be.
No one. You ask any of my friends back in South Africa, none of them, when I was at university, would have ever thought that this would have been my path. So I'm proud of myself for like believing in myself. So yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Because we spoke about this on the pod before, and there were lots of Dragon supporters and supporters from other teams who all said to me, you should have had more caps than what you did. You weren't getting a look in when, like you said, your stats and you were performing really well for the Dragons. I certainly feel like you should have had more than 5 caps personally, but at least you have played for Wales and you have had the honour of representing,
Correct. Like there's only so much I can do as a player at the end of the day, So I just do what I can do, and then, one man's opinion, and that's just what you have to go with,
Yeah, and I think, like you said, when Gatland came back, he was selecting a particular type of player, and it was just that was a situation, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, well, if you look at just an example, the Six Nations I was involved in, which were my last caps against England and France, I got picked as one of the 3 hookers, like me, Dewi, and Ken. And then Dewi got injured, and they brought in Scott Baldwin, and then he ended up getting selected ahead of me, and I just couldn't understand why that would be the case. That would be the natural, even when I was due a chance to, even when it was just glaringly obvious that it was my turn to get a chance, they were still turning that away and picking a guy that wasn't even selected for the initial squad. So whereas when I was in there initially and say Dewi got injured, I got brought in, then I was very clearly the 3rd choice, and they made that clear. So it's just it was always felt like I was running uphills. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But your last Wales appearance, Brad, you scored a try, so you ended it in style, didn't you? You came off the bench and you performed really well. I remember watching that game in the pub. You were really good coming off the bench.
Yeah, no, that was probably, as I said, that was probably my best performance for Wales.
Yeah.
And I thought, shit, I'm gonna have a good chance here of going to the World Cup, and I didn't make the initial squad, and then I didn't get picked after Ken. I just thought like that ship sailed. I'm not even gonna worry about that because it's out of my control, and there's no point getting down about it because at the end of the day, they obviously like what they like, and then they bring in Sam Parry, who's pretty much the exact same player as all of them. So they're obviously not looking for a guy like me. So what's the point in worrying about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another question then from Lee gets in touch, and so just to say before you answer this question, you're a big skateboarder, aren't you? So this is a skateboarding question. He's asking, what's your favorite skateboarding brand? Any particular brand you use?
Well, I'm not much of a park skateboard. I don't like doing kickflips and that. I like it's like a surf skate. You kind of just go down hills and you do turns and stuff. So that my brand of choice there would be called a Carver. But I grew up actually skateboarding quite a lot because obviously in Durban there's a massive beach culture. There's a skateboard park down by the beach, and we always grew up skateboarding, even though to our detriment, it's always the one where you got the worst injuries. But Carver would be my choice. I like Birdhouse was a big brand when we were growing up. It
Okay.
was like Tony Hawk's skateboards, and yeah, that's an interesting question though. Yeah.
On the skating, so did you grow up kind of listening to the skate punk bands and stuff? Were you into the whole scene?
Not really. No, we just like skateboarding because it was like something that we could do, like as a group of friends, and go to the skate park,
Okay.
and our parents would take us there. We just got some time like skateboarding. We were never particularly good at it, but it was always something fun that we could do, and like watching the older guys go down the big ramps. And yeah, I mean, growing up in South Africa is very outdoorsy. You know, you do
Yeah.
like you really spend time inside. So like you're always looking for things to do, whether it be like playing rugby or skateboarding or going down to the beach and bodyboarding or going for a swim, and that's like just things we grew up doing. So and skateboarding was one of them. And as I said, it was probably the one where everyone got the most grazes and bruises and broken bones, but we all loved it when we were kids.
Good stuff. Okay. Question from Harley. He asks, what part of professional rugby will you miss the most? What are you going to miss the most about rugby, Bradley?
I think it's like I think it'll be like probably just the team environment. You know, everyone's there with the common goal. You all want to do well. Like we all go out on a Saturday ready to give our like break a bone for our mates. Like you really willing to risk it all just to, be successful and like try win games. And I think that kind of culture I'll miss very much. Like, you know, during the weeks it's very low stress, and then you know what you have to be ready for on the weekend. So um like I like the high pressure. Like I like being under pressure and being in the flow state, like just like not having to think about things and just do, and I think rugby does that because it's such a high, you're just doing what you know you're good at. And like that's like what I'll miss, obviously I get that doing other things like going to the gym or going for a surf or like golf, kind of funny enough, gives it to me as well. Like, but just being in that team environment while you're in that state, you just feel like you can trust, like you with your brothers, you can trust everyone, and
Yeah.
you have to trust everyone because you have to trust that they're going to do their job for you to be able to do your job to your best ability. So yeah, I think that's what I miss the most.
Good stuff. Okay. I can't remember who asked this question though, so apologies. But he asked, how much is a step up from the URC does international rugby feel? I mean, it is a very competitive league with some great teams in there, but when you play international rugby,
Yeah.
it is a step up rally. So what do you think the main difference are? I'm guessing the speed and the physicality, is it?
Yeah, I think the physicality is a big one, but I feel
Yeah.
like you, your senses, and you just more hyped up for the international games. Not that I'm
Mm.
saying you aren't for the URC games, but you just know how much is at stake. So you
It's an occasion,
automatically
isn't it? It's the occasion of the
exactly you
test
just
match. Yeah.
you go into hyperdrive, like you just like hyper focus. You don't you're not attaching anything to your bodily feelings. Like you don't care how sore you have been during the week. Like if someone runs at you, you aren't going to take a backward step. Like you in like hyper speed, like your everything's just heightened. And I think it just happens naturally. You like if that doesn't happen to you, then you just get left at the wayside, kind of thing. You get like left out to dry. So I mean, the one thing is obviously the sense of occasion is huge. Like you walk out there, sing the anthems. It's like it's something you like as a kid you dream of, but when you get out there and do it, it's like
Yeah.
bloody hell, this is huge. Like this is massive. So,
Mm.
um, but I think as professional athletes, you're always primed for those sort of occasions. It's just like once you play one, you realize, okay, I could do this. Like this is not something that's like so far beyond me that like you can do it. So I think your sense of
Yeah.
self belief goes up, and then I think it helps you when you come back down to the URC level to play without fear. Because you think,
Yeah.
oh well, I've done that, I've proven myself there. So now this kind of becomes easier, and yeah, I think international rugby is, it's, the highest level, and
Yeah,
um, like you either learn to sink or swim, So the guys
absolutely.
who obviously swim, they thrive, and the guys who sink, they don't last too long. So, yeah, it's, I mean, for any professional rugby player, it's not something that's too far beyond them, They're there and thereabouts. It's just what they do to get themselves to that level to get an opportunity.
Okay, cool. And during your time at the Dragons, what were the standout memories for you? Are there any particular matches or performances that you're proud of? What sticks in the memory? I tell you, my favorite Bradley moment was our try against the Ospreys last season. It
Yeah,
was fantastic. I loved that.
that was one of the first ones. I mean,
Yeah,
winning a Welsh derby is always um, like that always sticks with you. Like winning. I mean, I never lost to the Ospreys at Rodney Parade, so something that I'll always be
that's a
proud
great
of.
start. We're gonna use that one
Yeah,
on the
and
pod.
and also like beating Munster last season when, well, not last
Yeah,
season,
the
my
season
first season,
before. Yeah,
when they went on to win the competition, and they were fully stacked. They had
they
Tag
were.
Byrne, Peter O'Mahony, Conor Murray. They had all their big guns, and
Yeah,
you know we did the unthinkable. We beat them, and we didn't just
yeah.
beat them; we dominated them. Like we didn't look like losing that
No, we were the better
game.
team. We
And
were the
Yeah,
better
like
team
that's just
absolutely.
that
what
day.
I know exactly, and that's what I think that is capable. The Dragons are capable of. It's just what does the repeatability look like? How can you
Yeah,
do that week in and week out? And I think the potential there. It's just it's more of from a player's perspective. I think it's a change in belief and in the players' minds. Like listen, we actually can win games, and
yeah,
you win games by winning games. The more you win, the more you learn how to win, and it becomes a habit. And then it's just like you flick a switch in your head, and then you become winners. And it's not just like, oh, like, are we the underdogs in this game? Like, are we gonna win? Are we gonna lose? It's like, okay, we're going out there to win now. And like,
yeah.
what are we gonna do to get us to the result?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about psychology as well, Bradley, isn't it? And I think that's what's been the issue with the Dragons.
Yeah,
Would you say that
definitely.
lack of belief in winning, and that's something that Philo Tier
Yeah,
and Dai is working on to try and turn around that losing culture mentality?
100%. Like no one, like let's be honest, we don't. No one wants to be like. No one starts a preseason thinking, okay, we want to be a loser. Like that just never happens. Like there is that in the players that knows how to win, But it's just about getting that out from the old beliefs and like the preconceived ideas about what they have as what like how the Dragons should be performing, and the reality of how we all know that the Dragons can perform because we've all seen it
Yeah,
in drips and drabs. So it's like it is a big psychological thing, and I think that's something that Philo's brought in massively. Is like just the belief in every player. Who doesn't matter who gets selected, they're picking that team to win. They're not picking that team because they want to give guys a shot, or they want
yeah,
to. Ultimately, the Dragons want to win and
mm,
the players want to win, but it's how do we learn how to win when the going
yes,
gets tough and the games are tight? Like, how do we get that result over the line?
mm,
Um, which is a big thing. And I
yeah,
think you need to be in those scenarios for it to happen. Like you need to be in those situations where you're close to winning or you're just behind with minutes to go and you keep hold of the ball, you create pressure, and then you end up getting the result. So um, yeah, it's a big mental thing, and I
yeah,
think that they've been working hard at that, which is a good thing.
yeah, absolutely. And then finally, what does the future hold for Bradley Roberts post rugby? And this ties in with a question that we had from Darren, who asks, do you see yourself in a coaching position in the future or something totally different to rugby? So do you see yourself stepping away from rugby completely, or do you feel like
I
you could stay
mean,
in the game?
for the coming months, I don't have much planned. Like I'm just gonna, take a step back, just process everything. I mean, as of 2 months ago, I still wanted to play professional rugby, so it's been
Mm,
pretty drastic change, and it's also been quite quick. And like I've had a lot to try and organize with me moving back to South Africa, and so I haven't really had time to think about like what I really want. And I know that I'd be a good coach. Like that's something that I know I'd be good at. So that seems
Yeah.
like an option. But I also want to kind of other things first, and in the background get my coaching qualifications and do all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
still coach maybe like clubs and kind of work my way up, because I know as a coach there's not many, there's none, no 28-year-old head coaches or forwards coaches or anything like that anyway. So I know that it's kind of, not saying that there couldn't be, but
No.
I know it's something where you have to build up your reputation, and that takes time. And obviously, the earlier I start that, the better my qualifications will get and my CV will get. So, like, that is something that I would seriously consider. But for the time being, I'm not really thinking about that. I'm just going to enjoy myself and take the pressure off myself having to, which was a big reason why I moved home. Actually, was just, I'm going to come stay with mum for a few months and just like kind of just de-stress and try and figure it out, speak to the right people, see what they think I'd be good at. I know I'd be a good coach, but it's just like, I feel like I'm not the right demographic yet to be there. But I suppose there's no good time to start anything, so I probably should get cracking with that sooner rather than later.
Just in what you've been saying to us this evening, Bradley, you come across as somebody who understands rugby.
Yes.
And I've played with players who have no idea what they're doing, and there's professional players who come across like that as well. But you come across as somebody who understands the game, so I think you will be an effective coach.
Yeah. No, well, that's the thing. I grew up loving rugby. Like I used to skip classes when I was at boarding school just so on Fridays, just so I could watch the Super Rugby in the morning. Like Rene Ranger was an idol of mine growing up, just because of how abrasive and how like ruthless he was. And that's like kind of someone that I kind of tried to, even though I was very different in stature, tried to mold myself after. And and like I know the intricacies and I understand the game very well. And as a player, it's hard to get that across because there's only so many involvements you can, like, there's so much stuff you can actually do. And like, I'm not a big talker on the field. I'm more of a doer. So it's hard. It was sometimes what I needed to say across because I'm so like intense when I was on the field that like sometimes it would come across as angry or like being negative, but that's not the way I would try and portray it. But like, I wouldn't be the guy in the huddle saying, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. I'd just be like, okay, Oaks, we need to make our tackles. Yeah, like, it's the simple things we need to do better to be better. You know what I mean? So, I think I would be a good coach. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know when the right time is to, like, kind of, I suppose now's the right time because I'm retired now. So I should probably get cracking.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavin, any further thoughts from you before we wrap up?
No, I was going to ask about coaching, but
Darren, go on.
Well, Darren had asked that question anyway.
Right. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Bradley, thank you so much for joining us. It really is appreciated. And good luck with the next chapter in your life, whatever comes next for you, whether that be coaching or anything else in your career. All the very best. And you were a huge fan favourite down Rodney Parade, and we're going to miss you terribly. But
and thank you for everything you did for the club and for Wales.
Yes.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, I'm looking forward to seeing how the Dragons go this year. From what I've seen firsthand, it's been very, very exciting. Like everyone wants the Dragons to succeed, and like no one more than me. Yes. So I'm very excited to see what the boys can achieve. So and thank you very much for everything tonight, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you to all the fans for all the support over the last few years. It's been an absolute pleasure to play for the Dragons, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Great stuff. I think that's a really good note to leave it there. So thank you, Bradley. Gavin, thank you as always. And thank you, the listener, for downloading this episode. No problem. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with another special guest. But until then, take care and goodbye.
That was the Dragons Lair. Join us for more of the same next week. And in the meantime, please rate, review and share us on socials if you can. Until then, enjoy your rugby.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.